also over the marketing material and read between the lines and understand like what's really happening, what's not. But when you talk to individuals, you really get an understanding of what are the hurdles that they're struggling with and the solutions that they're coming up with, and then brainstorming solutions together. So that's me on my end.
Todd Class. I am in the educational world. I went to school for architecture. I worked for Skidmore, Owings and Merrill for a billion years. Left them and fully took on an educational experience. So for me to stay up to date, I'm sorry, can you not hear me? I'll use my outside voice if necessary. Anyway, the easiest way for me to actually keep up with the industry is to talk to the 165 faculty that we have working for us who are out in the industry. Unfortunately, they're not all in the BIM community. It's all over the map. It's anywhere from somebody using that program I think you all might have heard of, AutoCAD, to SketchUp, to Rhino. And it's really interesting to see the diversity of how the technology is used within the architectural engineering, interior design community. I think that answers the question.
Thanks, Todd.
Rob?
Hi, Bob Yori. Work at AECOM. Background in architecture, but went intersectional with technology many, many years ago. One of the ways that I keep up with it is, in addition to what Charlie and Todd are saying, you source from the faculty, I source from the team members that we have working on the projects oftentimes, right? And this community and many others. There's such an eagerness and such an enthusiasm for understanding how technology can improve processes. Much where I was, like when I found my way to this intersection of architecture and technology. And it's really sort of, they're doing the legwork. They're really looking out, and I'm kind of understanding, see what the space is, seeing what's moving the needle on particular projects, and seeing sort of what kinds of questions are being asked. I think that's the real key, is understanding how these technologies are impacting the projects that we're working on right now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aditi Patel. Design background, transition more in technology. And can you guys hear me still? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Online can hear you great.
And then, so I've kind of like transitioned from design to all the way construction management. And it's been an interesting journey. I've always been one of those people tinkering with the tools. So I'm always looking at, like examples of work that is being posted anywhere from like Substacks or Medium or Reddit to social media, or even, professional networking platform. And it's a weird mix, but it's kind of like, it kind of keeps you up to date with the trends. And then based on what I like, or a specific problem that I'm looking at, I dig deeper into being very specific in terms of what are the tools available, or what are the APIs available that can be put together to then develop a solution that helps me, solve a problem that I have at hand. So that's been my approach. Now very organized. I'm all over the place, but I've just always been like that.
Hi, I'm Jan. I work at Big, and I've been the BIM director there for over 10 years now. So I'm maybe not so much of a tinkerer, even though I'm in a community of tinkerers. I think what I bring to the profession is more sort of an efficiency approach. So sometimes I sort of feel happier if I can remove a tool rather than add another tool, right? That doesn't mean that I don't want to stay up to date with what's going on. I also can identify, or I want to identify when a tool is really going to make an impact for us. But I rely a little bit on people in my team, right, who are more into sort of the shiny object or the geek approach to things, right? So, and if you don't have a large global firm or if you don't work at a large global firm as I do, I would really encourage you to find similar firms and go talk to the people that do the same thing that you do, because what I've noticed is there's really a willingness to share in our niche that you don't necessarily find in other parts of our industry. Like, you know, designers are very sort of protective about their IP and don't want to share necessarily, don't feel the need to do that. But I've always felt like I've had ins in many of our competitor firms to the other technology focused people, and I've learned a lot that way.
I'm the last one, I guess, right? So, oh yeah, sure is here. So my name is Ayse Polat. I'm the BIM director, VDC director for Northeast region at Turner Construction. So I agree with everybody who said, you know, where to be, you know, like how to be up to date. But the thing is that there is no one recipe for this. So first of all, you have to be curious. You have to be interested in, you know, finding new things. The efficiency is very important because you don't want to do technology or you don't want to implement a tool just for the sake of it. It has to be efficient. It has to help the way that we work. So otherwise, you know, it's going to be waste of time and money. So I would say our team here in New York and the Northeast region, I would say we have a very good, you know, networking. Like, you know, throughout the country, we have around 250 VDC professionals. And so like if any product or anything that we are curious about it, like we just send a general message to everybody and then somebody may have used it. And then we start, you know, having the conversation instead of reinventing the wheel over and over again. We start the conversation there. Or, you know, like we have something about the drones. We have subject matter experts that we go and talk to them, or, you know, like we have a meeting quickly. So there's no one way of like just staying up to date. It's networking, it's attending events like that, you know, organizational events, email distributions of the agencies and organizations that has been, you know, like in your interest. For example, how many of you heard the Digital Twin Consortium? How many of you getting their emails and, you know, events? Yeah, so it's like 2. So actually they have amazing papers that they are releasing. They have amazing, you know, webinars, like you don't even have to go somewhere. They have workshops also in the Washington, DC, but the thing is that if you have time, that's great. I've been there once. It was great. This is how you know, find your interest. And then, you know, like we are in the internet era, like it's so easy to reach out to any information. Even you can't ask your friend AI, and then they can give you all the organizations that you are interested in. And then, you know, like you can just pick and choose. So it's a little bit of everything. So it's a little bit of being curious and interested in what you want to do. So.
Well, I guess I have a bit of an odd perspective compared to the group here. I'm Shiori Sasaki. I guess I'm representing the software vendor side of things, although I also identify as an architect. Studied architecture and started my career in architecture, and then was never really interested in technology until I worked for the Port Authority and got kind of accidentally into GIS and became the GIS person for the port department. And so now work for Esri, which is the, you know, one of the big GIS software makers. So in terms of learning about kind of innovation and new trends, I think for me, it's talking to customers, talking to clients. In my role, I'm sort of in the consulting business of Esri, and I'm not doing a lot of technical work myself. It's more like advisory, strategic advisory, and kind of governance consulting. And it actually is reminding me of something we talked about kind of before this, getting ready for this, the sort of meta problem of, yes, it's great to know about all these events and all these information sources, but a key problem is like, is your firm giving you enough time to actually do that research and ask those questions and you know, pull in that information and test it. So that's something I see a lot in my role at Esri. You know, we're constantly creating new products and new features, and our customers, a lot of them struggle to keep up, and they tell us this. And part of the problem is like, you know, nobody has enough time. So that's a thing that, you know, at sort of the management tier, you have to balance, are you investing enough in the kind of innovation research piece to make sure that you're keeping up, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
So while everyone was talking, it occurred to me, I'm looking like it sounds like we all are kind of sourcing our information in similar ways, which is to talk to someone else, right? So I think maybe what could be also helpful to the group is to like, let's give an example of something like a new technology or a new information source that you heard about recently. How did you find it? What is it? Like, for example, I was like, I want to learn a little bit more about stuff that's outside of my sphere, but it's still very like AEC technology focused. And one of my teammates was like, hey, Troxel podcast. I love Troxel podcast. And it's like this rabbit hole, right? Like, because you listen to one of the interviewees and he puts down all of the links on his website. So you can go and like find out all about their company, maybe their personal website, maybe their own podcast. And suddenly you have like 50 podcasts that you need to listen to, right? So I think that that's one example. So do you guys have any examples of recent discoveries?
Well, I have to admit, I don't know that this is recent, but I think one of the things Charlie's comments kind of spurred me on this. I always think about innovation and adjacency in the same breath, right? Like, so it's fine. It's absolutely fine to go deep in one's own, area of expertise, but I think it's very enlightening when you just kind of jump out of that and go to another track. Like I did that probably years ago, many, many years ago. Someone had actually James Van de Zandt recommended to me one year. We were at AU and he's like, you know what I did last year? He's like, I took all the classes that didn't have anything to do with architecture. Like just the whole other universe that's going on, at AU. And I was like, so I tried that one year. It's absolutely fascinating. The things that I thought of, the things that it sort of spurred me to do and bring back to the office, like was really, really helpful. So, the other different types of user groups that are going, myself, I've jumped from industry to industry throughout my career because I've been very interested in what's like architecturally adjacent and sort of how that can inform, right? So there's innovation, but innovation isn't global, right? Something in one industry might be incredibly innovative and 25 years old in another industry. So I think it's really interesting to see, how other areas that are related impact, what I might be able to bring back to practice.
No, exactly. Because if you think about it, like gaming engines they're called gaming engines for that reason, right? They're developed for the gaming industry, but yet then we found uses for them, right? Drones, for example, I don't know exactly what they were developed for, but I doubt it was for the architecture industry. But we found uses for them, right? So there's always opportunity, data visualization, right? That didn't really become a hot topic till like, 10, 15 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, give or take, right? Then, everything like D3, Power BI, all this other stuff, started to become kind of prevalent. So yeah, so the sort of those adjacencies that kind of, or these sort of technologies that can kind of, they're sort of almost industry agnostic in a way. AI is going to be another one that's just going to cross cut every industry and affect everybody. Mobile phones, right? At first they were just phones, but then they became smartphones, and now think of all the things that you could do on site, punch listing and whatnot, right? Tablets and so on, right? So there's like so many things there if you kind of look at what's outside of your sort of periphery in a way.
I guess over the past year, I've heard a lot about like BIM 2.0, and there's been a lot of like online tools like trying to solve the conglomerate problem that is Autodesk. And I feel like there haven't really been any tools online that have that full on collaboration that have been able to get to an actual like construction documentation detailing. Like, I don't think we're gonna get away from Revit anytime soon, when it comes to that side of it. Um, so I'm just curious, I don't know. I feel like BIM 2.0 kind of like died out, but I don't know if people have found other tools that are working for them when it comes to actual construction documentation that isn't Revit. Because if it's not, then I'm just curious about that.
Have you tried any?
I mean, all the ones that are online that are based are more for conceptual massing and, you know, planning layouts and stuff. I mean, Arcol was one of them that had a lot of marketing last year that kind of just fizzled out. But
No, I sort of wholeheartedly agree with you, sadly, in a way, right? Because we're all looking for the thing that's gonna break the monopoly, and we're getting to your summer discussion already. But no, my first question to the Arcals and the Snaptrudes out there is always like, what's your change management tool, right? Or what's your modeling engine look like? Like the real basics, you know. I don't want them to build exactly what we have in Revit, right? But I at least want to get an idea of what they're going to do beyond what they now have to just develop to satisfy their investors, which is these feasibility tools. But I agree. I think most of them are stuck in the feasibility tool and are building great feasibility tools, but that's not necessarily something that a lot of us need. So I look at the ones that are focusing on their modeling kernel, basically. And there's not that many left. I think there's one called Conic that I'm following. Are they going to be able to pull it off? But at least they seem to show progress in modeling and not just showing off this SketchUp push-pull thing, you know, that is not going to get us anywhere, right? We need a robust engine that will help us manage change over the course of a whole project, which we all pretty much know what sort of tool we need for that, right? So yeah, I'm with you there, and still questioning if there's going to be a BIM 2.0. I always thought that BIM 2.0 actually meant that we were going to deliver models rather than drawings from models. I thought that was sort of BIM 2.0, but then it was sort of co-opted by the software developers who are racing towards the 2028 price increase that is going to hit us right on Autodesk. So yeah, who knows? But yes, I've also grown a little bit disappointed with the options out there in the startup sphere. I mean, we're
I think when you were talking and you were asking the question, I thought to myself, do we need construction documents? Like, do we need 3D drawings, right? Like, because, right now in the industry, everybody knows, right? Like, we start with 3D, thanks to the designers, and then they send us 2D, and we sign a huge fat waiver. We sign big waivers too, don't worry. From any company that we sign waivers, so they are like, not responsible from any electronic distribution. That electronic distribution actually includes PDFs too. So our legal team said, no, they are responsible from PDFs. But anyway, so that becomes 2D, and then we generated 3D, models for coordination purposes, fabrication purposes, and then we submit shop drawings, 2D again. And then those 2D shop drawings became the actual building. Hopefully, like they are going to install it the way it is. So it's going to be the LOD 500. Wish for that. So I think that has to change. So that's whatever you call BIM 2.0 or 3.0, whatever it is, this should come. And we truly believe that in 5 or 7 years, we are not going to do clash detection anymore. It's going to be all automated. So we are not going to sit with the VDC engineers and run clashes anymore in the fabrication models. Probably AI is going to come with like variation of rerouting according to code rules and, like some certain things. For example, we are right now for the production tracking that we generated in-house, we are actually using AI tools that is recognizing automatically in the model which CSI categories that belongs to. That has been done by AI. Right now, our accuracy is around 85%, so we are trying to get it to 90 or over. But the thing is that those are doable. Those are happening right now. So in 5 years, maybe the architects are not going to generate 2D drawings anymore, and we don't have to sign waivers.
Yeah, I mean, just to build on Aisha's point a bit, I think that move from construction documents, 2D kind of traditional construction documents, to model as the legal document, it's happening in maybe the DOT space, right? With like infrastructure. We're starting to see that, especially on the Esri side, and it is becoming a pipeline where, you know, the design drawings turn into construction, you know, design drawings, and then they feed into an asset management system that is, you know, on the back end powered by GIS. But that's driven by owners.
Yeah.
And I think until, you know, our clients are asking, where is the data that produced these construction documents, because we want it to operate our facilities, the software vendors aren't going to change what they're doing, I think. So that's, yeah, sort of from my perspective, that's what I'm seeing. But
yeah, I was gonna be similar. But I think it's the question of project delivery, how we are delivering our projects. You know, we have these sort of abstract breakdown of here is the ownership for design, that is like designer's responsibility. Once it goes into construction, just arbitrarily we hand it over to the contractors, and then the owner is kind of left to just pick up the pieces and put it all together. That fundamental structure is the problem, right? Where, you know, it just goes through so many different stakeholders that no one wants to be responsible for anything beyond what they produced. And I guess, you know, with the AI and all that, like a lot of things can change. I'm hoping, you know, that also has an influence in terms of how the projects are built and delivered. And this abstract segmented, you know, approach kind of blends more cohesive. Think of more as like IPD similar structure where everybody works together on the same model. And maybe that's a way to produce the 3D model as a project deliverable.
a question.
Okay, right.
Long time, yes. I think
Hold on. Okay, I want to put a little bookmark in this. I think it's very interesting. I think we should save it for a future. Maybe we'll call it BIM 2.0 because we're straying a little from our topic, right? So I absolutely want to learn more.
you and I will talk later.
Yeah. So
I think it's a good, yeah, it's a very, yeah, interesting topic for me personally.
so I think if we take a couple steps. So you were asking about exploring the tool. Bothering all of like, hey, try my tool. Won't you be the one to pilot, you know, bringing our stuff into the digital future, right? Or you go to AU or whatever conference and you're in the exhibition hall and 10 million tools that are all variations on a theme, right? We've got tool overload. So how do you decide which ones you're going to look into?
I can't speak about that. It's possible. So actually there was a commercial a while back. I think it was Florida orange juice. I don't remember exactly, but I'm trying to find that commercial. Actually, I'm going to ask AI. So it was very interesting. So because they were in this orange farm and then like in front of an orange tree, and a guy is like on the stairs, like the ladder, and holding the orange like that. And the lady downstairs, like down, and she's saying that, hold it, hold it, hold it now. And then he just pulled it out the orange. And the topic is like, the point they are trying to make is that they are waiting for the perfect time of the orange to be mature enough to to be ready for the orange juice. So going back to the tools. So that's exactly the commercial that I try to describe, is the when you select tool, actually. If you act very early, you are going to fail. But when you see that the tool is picking up, and then like we are watching, actually, like we are not like, you know, ignoring those LinkedIn emails or something. We are definitely looking at it. But the thing is that there are so many that we cannot just invest on everything. So we are waiting at the right moment. And then when the right moment comes, we say, okay, so it's time to pull the trigger and make an investment. So that's basically how I approach, actually. So I don't approach earlier, but I watch it. I watch it for a while, what they are doing. And then when it's time and when I really believe in it, and then I just, you know, start, you know, piloting or, you know, trying the tool.
We usually look at you, so we're even later.
So I've been in the industry a very, very long time. And when I started in the industry, it was everyone was being funneled or pushed to a project or to an application because the owner wanted everyone in the application because it needed to coordinate. Everybody needed to make sure that things lined up, right? And we're talking about 2D. We're not talking about 3D models. We're talking about a really a 2D world. And what happened was it got the market down to this one like day in January that everyone was on the same piece of software at the same moment. And it was very, very interesting because it made the market really easy to deal with. It made the technology really, really easy to deal with. And then Autodesk bought this little company that owned this piece of software called Revit. And the whole world fell apart because it splintered the community so much because we were forced into this one world. And then Revit came along and we all said, oh yeah, by the way, you have to leave and go to this other thing. Well, when they left, they didn't necessarily go to Revit. They went to SketchUp or they went to Rhino or they went to whatever, what I call tutti frutti software. And one of the problems that I think exists in the industry is we're too diverse. We're too open. There are too many things out there. There are too new shiny things that we want that is not helping us as the architects in the industry to focus back to a single point and getting us to the moment of being able to say, and will never happen, but to say to the client, we only do this, right? It might help, but I don't think so. I think the world is getting further and further split apart. And yes, there will be very niche markets for a tool, and being able to evaluate that tool, it sucks because everybody wants to sell you that sparkly, shiny thing. And I am probably the example of the anti-technology technologist, right? I really believe that we're not doing it just because we're doing it because it actually solves a problem. Oh, wait, I have this new thing that I want to teach you or show you. But what does it do? Oh, I don't know. It drives me nuts. So.
Todd, you hit on something I say all the time. Like the way that I position technology where I work is that it's means to an end, right? And
Yep.
if it's not, like if it's an end in and of itself, then I would say more times than not, it's a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with technology being a hobby, right? But you know, where I am, we have to figure out how technology can make a positive impact on what we're doing, right? And to this point, yeah, hobby wise, I love to play with all that stuff. I love to check it out. I love to see who the players are. I love to see, you know, who's buying whom. I love to see all of that. But like, how does that impact what I do, you know, when I go back to work in the morning? Well, that's related, but separate. So to your point, you know, I kind of wait for the right time. I see where the market is. I see where the needs are. I see where the potential benefit match is. And yeah, that's, you know, I have conversations with these folks like we all do, right? But it's really a question of timing and value, right? Otherwise, it's my hobby.
All right, Adam's got a question.
Quick question. Who here considers technology as their hobby?
What's a hobby?
The bunch of tools and then Autodesk, we talked about AU. Very, talked about a lot that we Autodesk is from.
Realized I'm holding the
This
mic.
is a tool that, I mean, it's all, everybody's been pushed in their faces.
It's Forma data management.
Yeah. I'm just curious what people think about, you were talking about breaking away from the monopoly, right? Well, it's all about who controls the data. So if all your data is being brought up onto ACC, so I'm just curious what your feelings are on that and how that only adds to the monopoly and the usefulness of things like ACC.
I started in the architecture side working on projects, and I've like found myself in this place where now I deal with infrastructure based topics. And when I talk about infrastructure, it's not.
Step back, Charlie. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
It's not. I'm not dealing with infrastructure projects such as roadways and whatever, but it's more like topics like what you were just talking about. Where does all the data reside, and how do you deal with it? We use BIM 360 right now. We're migrating to ACC. We've always had the mindset to actually put the least amount of data on BIM 360, and moving to ACC will do the exact same thing. We have our own business intelligence platform, project management, staffing, billing, all this other. We manage that. We control that. We make sure that we don't put that out there for a lot of different reasons, project confidentiality, sensitive projects, that sort of thing. But it's also this lock-in, right? Not being able to be locked in. Now we're developing the API solutions that we collaborate the appropriate data across, but just that, right? Like at some point, you have, as an individual, you have to be aware enough to know where your data resides because it's important, it's critical, it's valuable to you, but it may have a higher value to somebody else that may leverage it. And as a lot of these other firms are putting out in their EULAs, statements about using their platforms for training AI and that sort of thing, great, you could put that in there. We also have a stance of this is our data, right? And this is going to be proprietary to us, and we're going to use it how we want to use it. So it's being proactive about those sort of scenarios, right?
Yeah, I don't know if any of you guys read AEC magazine. Yes, I know you do. Yeah. So Martin Day, like there was a recent issue. I don't know if it was the most recent one, but Martin had a whole issue devoted to this. There was the big picture of the data lake house, right? Like on the front, and the point of his article and theme is that larger firms who can do that are now beginning to build their own data lakes and data repositories for exactly that reason, right? There's apprehension about putting the data up into somebody else's environment where who knows what happens to it, right? I mean, certainly our company was mentioned. We bought a tool recently. I don't know, maybe you heard. But the point, certainly for us, I can say that there's a lot of work that we do that really we can't put up on the cloud, right? Just because of we do a lot of government work, we do a lot of secure work. There's a lot of that sort of stuff. We can't even take advantage of that, right? So, our solution in those cases, we don't want to have to manage multiple solutions, right? So we find something that certainly fits the bill for as many use cases as we can. So, but I just think in general, I really liked Martin's point, about industry moving towards taking back ownership of their own information and using it for their own purposes and keeping it, to ourselves for security reasons, for confidentiality reasons, for competitive advantage reasons, pick your reason.
Who here has worked on a project and their client said, you can't share my data? There we go, right?
Every day.
Callmatic 3 times a year for this, because most of my clients,
Department of Defense.
Exactly.
OBO
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
You can't even start a Bluebeam session.
Yeah. We deal with all of that, and challenge, but in a way I understand like their concerns. I also feel that, industry is so polarized that people who have access to data, they have a huge control on it. But then you have the other side where smaller firms who do not have financial capabilities to create their own infrastructure, they're basically sitting on data, but they have no vehicle to actually take advantage of that information. And, I don't know, I guess maybe at some point, maybe more like a kit or part platform system where you can just, use to develop your own solutions and kind of guarantees privacy and, like IP protection is probably the right approach to go about it.
So what are some other topics out a way how to
I guess, yeah, I mean, sort of building on Aditi's point about the firms with resources can kind of collect all the data from across many different projects. And that's something, I mean, I'm just validating that from my perspective. I see that with the big, like the ACOMs and the big ones. On the construction side too, I think there might even be more incentive to do that, to have not just sort of a project level view of things like production rates, for types of materials or types of work, but across the whole company, to have sort of that insight, the ability to have insight into that. So something I think about on a daily basis is like data governance, organizational governance, even business governance, like how are decisions made around how this data moves within the company? What does that mean for our systems, our IT systems? What does that mean for our process, our people? So I think that's a really critical topic that not enough architecture firms, engineering firms think about.
So I don't want to get into security because it's a very wide topic. Actually, that can be very under that can be another, building information and security can be like a topic by itself. So I don't want to get into that, but of course it's important. So I would say, from the construction professional perspective, which I'm formerly an architect, so I've been in design for years. I would say design is still, very abstract, right? Like documentation doesn't mean anything. But the thing is that when we receive those documentation or the contract documents, it becomes a reality. And then that transition is very painful. And that transition that you see, there is no gray color anymore. It's black and white. Like you just have to build it and it has to be correct. It has to be according to design. And there are so many things, right? According to code and everything. So when you do that transition, things get much more complicated because now you can talk about robotics, how those going to affect to the information and the digital information, the interoperability software platforms, like there are so many aspects of being in construction site that Darren knows already. So that is making things much more complicated than design. Because I've been in design, I would say that construction is very that's the reason we are very least digitized industry in the world, because it's so complicated. There are so many depending activities. There are so many affecting things. Human factor is very big still, like talking about robotics. So there are so many factors that affects the process, schedule, time, weather conditions, that is making it very complicated. That's the reason. It's not because we are dumb. It's because it's very complicated. So I would say that, with all those perspectives, it becomes very difficult to look into those things and then making the right decision, because those right decisions can lead to a very fantastic outcomes. And also it will not affect anything. And then you are going to waste your time and then do nothing. So that's what I would say.
I've been really sort of captivated by this idea, which is just now starting to come together over the last year, about reconciling two different approaches. And this is especially important when technology intersects with just about anything that's in a professional services capacity. And that is a project approach and a project mindset versus a product approach and a product mindset. And they're two different approaches. And how to get one to work in the culture of another is, I think, something that I'm going to be scratching my chin on for quite some time. Just thinking about what it means to build a product and refine a product versus something that's a little bit more project oriented, which is like, get it done, get out the door, learn your lessons, and improve it for the next project that comes along, rather than this process of continual refinement and evolution of, a solution that you define. So I think about it a lot, probably more than I should.
It's also like prohibiting factor because most owners also don't understand the product approach. So they're always looking at like project delivery in a way, like I've seen.
They're two different business models.
Strangles the innovation,
Two different business models.
Yeah. Because a lot of stuff is just looked at through the project delivery lens. And the moment you introduce innovation, it's like, oh, I don't have a vehicle to procure this. I don't know how this works. I don't have any advice, insights on what should I go ask for. All kind of issues that you hear from owners. I mean, all of them are valid concerns. But yeah, going back to, we're very much like just looking at it like one building at a time. So a little bit is changing with the modular construction and all that, but it's still, I'm curious, would you actually prefer to have more of a product approach to the construction or AEC in general?
Let him scratch his chin for a moment.
That's another, yeah, I need to, thank you, Todd.
It's hard when every building is
It's different, yes.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
So you have to define what is the product. I think the product for us is the process. You know what I mean? Like, we need to figure out that we're selling something that we can reproduce across a diverse team, across employees who are constantly changing and turning over. That's the real linchpin that it all kind of hinges on, right?
Yeah, but
between those two different
which
deliveries.
client comes to you with the sentence, I'm procuring your process.
Right.
They don't.
Procuring a building.
That is the biggest
Right.
shortfall.
A building, not
Yeah.
a process.
Yeah,
Whatever happens internally to you.
is your
you
problem.
Get hired for the product, but you want to believe that your main trade process, right? And that's where that gray beard gets.
Yes. Well, what was I going to say? Oh, thanks. I thought about this approach a number of years ago. I began to think about, I was working for an architecture firm at the time, and I began to think about technology and how it sort of augments the practice of architecture. And I thought about it in two ways. So at the time, I was very involved with like Building Smarts and the BIM coalitions around, and it was very much in the National Institute of Building Sciences, right? It was very much about building science, right? And the firm that I worked for had a real heavy emphasis on technology as it applied to the technical delivery of architecture, right? And so, I mean, which to me, I totally get, right? Like I get it, right? It's a pretty short line between efficiency and improvement and so forth. But I began to flip that on its head. And it's like, okay, well, if instead of thinking about, let's say, the practice as a science, what if you thought about it as a humanity? So how does technology help the practice of law, which is fundamentally different than how it might help a scientist, a chemist, for example, right? So I don't have any answers. I just ask a lot of questions, but these are the kinds of things that I begin to think about, like where technology can impact both sides. And I think perhaps the more humanitarian side of it is more about a process. If you hire a lawyer, you don't buy a not guilty verdict. You would like to buy a not guilty verdict, right? And that's what everybody hopes for, right? But you can't buy that, right? You have to buy the process of hoping to get you there, right? So what does that mean in the context of a design profession? I don't know. I don't have answers. I just have questions. But I think about, right, how technology impacts it if you think about, whatever sort of work that you're doing in the design industries through either of those two lenses. Okay, I can do it. Anybody can do it. Okay.
Thank you. Hi guys, thank you for the conversation. So Ilkay from Gen X. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I started using Revit 2007, and since then I'm very passionate about it because it changed everything for me. From me who couldn't use CAD, then I can do so many things in Revit. But what I think the main challenge is people don't know the end goal of the project specific goals, the phase specific goals, stage by stage, by stakeholders, everyone's point of view and their expertise in the project is unknown to their own teams. So at the end, digital tool is just the Revit of the world and the Nevis and all that are just the tools. If you don't understand the end goal and the end products, the purpose of that and what data and geometry it has to hold, it doesn't matter if it's Revit CAD or SketchUp. So I think it's complex. Ayse mentioned it's complex. That's why, and it's so complex because the process itself or the end goal itself is way too complex for one digital platform to manage or put it together all the time. So we have to have this combination of different tools and platforms and people with expertise of doing these things, understanding the end product. Is that the plumbing? Is that the structure? Is that the architecture? Is that the construction? Is it the installation phase? What is the goal? And so I'm really growing to understand end-to-end goal, looking at the end goal, which is the pull schedule. That's a new concept I'm learning. I think it's called pull schedule, but basically understanding the end goal and everything else starts from that, not from where we are and what is the next step, but going back and then coming back to that. So technology, honestly, it's just a tool. It's the human's experience, like know-how is what matters because everyone can use Revit or Rhino or Grasshopper. And we did test tools like Katia, and I know, Adita, you had background as well with Dassault systems. So we tried these other tools in the market that are not used for construction, but for aerospace or automobile production. So and jewelry. So yeah, know-how, hands-on experience is the most valuable thing. Everything else is just, okay, it can change. It doesn't matter. Point of view. Thank you.
So we're at 7:23. Last chance, last question, anyone? Go for it.
I just say thank you for like all these conversations. I think it just gives me a lot to reflect on. So my background is architecture, and then became a technologist, and then now a business consultant, and do a lot of data analytics now. And just like really thinking about like what is a noise and what is a signal, and how do you start to reconcile these things? And back to Ikai's point, like what is a goal? What are we trying to do? And in some ways, we're all in business of transformation, right? It's like, what are we transforming, for whom and why? And everything starts from there, right? And then we all have our places in the business, what those things are, and how do you start to create your kind of way of filtering what's a good signal and what's noise, but also like ways to communicate those to the people who you can influence, right? I think I had a good conversation with Minsu about like, how do I actually communicate the value of this to, people of your community to really influence and impact. What's really fascinating to me is, Revit broke AutoCAD. It took decades for us to be legitimate as a Revit users, right? And then just God forbid any new tool come and disrupt Revit, because that's going to be another 20 decades of somebody's career making that happen. So we're in very hard business, right? So then ultimately the question is, what is a big impact and where does that fit? And I think those are really the questions that we should ask. And like, should we even get to the point where we disrupt the business model? Is it a product or a service? I would argue that actually the future is hybrid, and that's a whole different kind of conversation, right? So like, how do we actually have these higher level conversations and then also communicate that out from beyond this community. I think those are kind of important things. And I just kind of, this conversation kind of made me think about those things.
Apparently I'm much better.
It's the MC right here.
That was it.
Yeah, sorry. I don't have anything. I just took it back.
How much time do we have left? How much time do we actually have left?
We can keep going.
No, let's call it 10, 15.
Yeah.
5 codings.
I want to be out by 8. So let's give it another, whatever's there.
I wanted to play devil's advocate and say, do you guys remember when Netscape sued Microsoft because of browsers being inside of Microsoft and now monopoly, antitrust, all that good stuff? A couple of you guys brought up the point of, do we just lean into Revit? Like, do we need all this new technology, or are we not utilizing Revit as robustly as maybe we could as an industry? Is it really just broken, or are we just stuck in a place where it's so complicated? These projects are so complicated that the tool we really need needs to be just as complicated, and that's frustrating in and of itself, right? But I want to play devil's advocate and say, like, how can we figure out to use the Revit API and build add-ons like GRAITEC does, and like maybe make Revit more ubiquitous like AutoCAD was way back when in like the legacy days? Like, can we lean into it? I don't know. I'm just trying to foster a conversation here. Is there, is anybody else in agreement?
Also, you're talking about
APIs and what SOM was doing with their own application called Draft, which then became AES, that this little organization called IBM bought. And for some reason, IBM went broke, maybe. And, then then SOM moved to this piece of software called AutoCAD architecture, right? Absolutely, positively the worst thing in the world, as far as I'm concerned. All right. And we were managing projects, we were managing drawings with Excel, right? It absolutely.
Just back to Excel. Oh, still doing that today.
Absolutely insane stuff. And then we moved, or they moved into the Revit world, and Revit became their system of choice. So I don't think writing from an architectural firm, writing our own rules, writing our own applications, I don't think there's a return on the investment. But maybe somebody's going to contradict me.
No, I mean, I think I personally no longer worry about Revit not being able to do certain things that I needed to do. And I did worry about that when I started out as a BIM manager 13 years ago. And I think it's precisely because of that reason. I think we use Revit a lot more than we used to, but we use it really as a container, right? And honestly, I'm maybe a little bit reluctant to admit this, but I actually share your observation that almost on a weekly basis, I'm like, damn, I'm actually sort of amazed that Revit wasn't built to deliver my project, but we do it, and they're crazy complex projects, right? So yeah, whatever's coming along it has a very high bar to cross.
When I said build APIs, I meant like very, very custom, out there things that Revit can't do. Maybe you need an API, but other than that,
Right.
try to lean into it so that we all have this common language.
Right.
You don't need more complexity.
No.
In a world that's already so complex.
Right.
That's why I brought up Microsoft. Like, do you really want like 13 different web browsers so that if you are a company that provides web services, you have to worry about 13 different architectures? No, you want one operating system for the computer so that you can do business unilaterally across the globe.
Right.
So like, that's kind of what I see when I look at Revit. It is very capable. It's clunky in a lot of ways, and we have to kind of work with what we have. But the alternative is fragmentation and fracturing.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure that we want to deal with that in our lives.
Well, they are in Europe. Like, we have projects in Europe, and they pride themselves on not being under the monopoly so much, but collaboration and coordination is a headache, you know. And I don't know. Like I think back to the to the Revit question, we don't develop our own APIs. Well, I mean, we're a biggish firm, but we've steered clear of becoming software developers. So
big, you're the big firm.
you did it. You did it.
Had to be done.
But no, like we rely just on developers out there, right? So it's not like we spend research and time and money on developing these things. So I think the landscape has just become more conducive at pushing stuff back and forth, and you don't need to hire the cases out there anymore, or pretty much everybody can do these things now. So yeah, you can do a lot with what's out there.
I think, is there anybody from Autodesk here? So I think Revit, like we trash Revit a lot, but Revit opened up a extremely interesting world of the building information modeling. Information was always in the backbone. Now it's getting more important, but we did building modeling. And we weren't doing that in AutoCAD. And I use AutoCAD architecture. I use 13 years AutoCAD. I know exactly how those, AEC desktops are working. But yeah, I mean, tools are tools. But the thing is that the holistic approach the tool provides you, like ACC, somebody asked, right? I mean, there are so many drawbacks of the tools, like including ACC, like it's not mature enough. Sometimes, we are running into issues. But the pros and cons that I always look at that the tool has a holistic approach to the collaboration, to break the silos and bring everybody together. That's where I invest because Revit kind of did that. And listen, I use Revit Buildings 8.0. It was 2006, I believe. I don't remember. Yeah. So that's where I started using Revit. And let me tell you, Revit came a long way. Like, we dropped the first project. We couldn't do it in Revit. And then we switched back to AutoCAD again. And then, go back to Revit again. So, but the thing is, the tool develops, but also you have to change your processes according to tool that you are using, because otherwise what's going to happen is that you have to meet in the middle. So the tool can do something for your processes, and you can bend a little bit your process to adapt to the tool. And then, you find a way around of it. And that's how it works, actually. That's how glue used to work. And then they killed the glue, and then now it's ACC. And the ACC is the same. So if you approach ACC like Navisworks, you will never be successful. Navisworks has to go away. I'm sorry. If there is anybody from Autodesk here, Navisworks has to go away. And we should use, cloud-based collaboration tools like designers and the construction team can transition that information. Then when we are talking about, eliminating the documentation. So that's what I believe.
I'll dig into that one a little bit because ironically, one of my former projects is right out the window here, and another project is downtown, just north of the World Trade Center. Different lifetime. I did a lot of skyscrapers, and you're dealing with a lot of curtain wall stuff. Excuse me. And yeah, there's curtain wall tools in Revit, but they're actually pretty horrible. Yeah, and there's way many stories I can bring. Maybe after a few beers, but it was one of these things where we were, building these really tight parametric models and then having to transition them into Revit because Revit was our container, and that's where drawings came out. It really was just a printing machine, and that's really it. We were working with a fabricator, and we gave them a Revit model. We gave them a Rhino model. We didn't tell them anything. We were just like, here are the models. They were intelligent enough to dissect the Rhino model and came back to us and said, hey, look, you guys are doing something that we haven't seen before. Let's talk. They were able to lower their bid price for just the curtain wall alone by close to $1 million. For over 3,000, we can define the entire facade of the building, over 3,000 facade panels with 1.7 megabytes of data. If it was 1.4, we would have been able to fit it on a floppy disk, right? And I think with what I know now, I can probably compress it even smaller to get it on the floppy disk. So, going back, exactly, right? But going back to this idea of like, these tools, whatever, it's like, and understand processes, part of what we should be asking is, okay, so we're going to deliver a building. It's almost as if the contractors and the fabricators kind of need to, there needs to be a catalog of pre-selected contractors and fabricators and understand, what do you need from us to build, right? What do the mill workers need from the architect? What do the steel workers need from the steel fabricators need from the engineers? What do they need, and in what format, right? Because I saw a project being built using spreadsheets, and that was it, right? Like, they didn't need drawings, right? And that was more effective for them than drawings, right? We do drawings because it's just a legacy thing. We can stamp it, people can read it, it becomes a legal document. How can you stamp an Excel spreadsheet? You can print it, yeah, maybe, but
we did that. So I worked at an architecture firm, and we worked on this large project that had a component that was effectively a sphere, but it was covered in a mastriaba, which is this sort of semi-permeable scrim almost. And that's exactly what we ended up doing. I mean, we had a model of it. It was a Rhino model of it, but the way that it had to be bid, we printed out one of the biggest spreadsheets you'd ever want to see on like 4 30 by 42 drawings, and just put the spreadsheet at the table of points on the drawing so that the fabricators could fabricate it. Yeah.
And then the fabricator calls you up and says, hey, can I get the spreadsheet? And you give it to them. And then they give you the shop drawings, and you call them up and say, hey, can you give me your spreadsheet?
Can you give me the data file? Right.
And I literally did shop drawing review for a skyscraper in 2 days.
Yeah.
So like,
But also,
How do you get past permitting?
I
Just
mean,
put a
well,
spreadsheet in
we
the
had a
drawing.
We had a drawing of the thing, and then we had three sheets worth of table,
In the sheet.
and it was stamped, and it was approved.
Yeah.
This represents this.
Yeah, exactly.
Follow point A to point B.
Yeah, now going back to, your question about should we just kind of just accept it and just use Revit as a tool. I don't know. Personally, I feel like just, I mean, we're designers, no two buildings are same. If we are not standardizing our design, why should we just accept the tool and work within the, what it offers? I guess the right approach would be to pick the right tool for your needs, right? And sure, it introduces all kind of ambiguity and creates all kind of coordination issues, but it also gives you a certain level of freedom to design and exactly express what you want to express. I mean, we've done this before Revit. CATIA was around. Sure, it's expensive, but it kind of did a lot of, going back to the curtain wall conversation. It was, it would produce fabrication grade models and drawings. And the hiccup was basically, how do we bring it back so that we can use Revit as a tool to produce the sheets? And there's all kind of tools and, automation, like plugins and stuff that had to be written, including like do heavy lifting with the Excel sheets, right? Just to bring that data back in the environment so that the proper drawing set can be produced. I still think, as painful as that workflow is, that is probably better than just saying, let's just marry with the tool and then just, focus on what it offers us.
oh, you poor bastard.
I wasn't saying that as like a catch-all because yeah, obviously there are geometries that Revit cannot handle at scale, at size. That was a great point. But I just wanted everybody to start thinking about the fact that like we're trying to simplify. I loved your example of if I can't get rid of a tool, like that's what I try to look for is like maybe this new tool will squash 2 other tools, then it's worth it. So what is the happy medium? Like we're not getting rid of Autodesk anytime soon. You know what I mean? It kind of sucks, but you're 100% right. What is and Ilkay said it, what is the goal of the project and what software suits that goal? That might be the way that we need to look at it. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
I didn't say it because I thought I'm an Autodesk fanboy.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Just,
Yep. Glad we brought up the conversation.
I'm not sure of the best way to explain this. I have a lot of thoughts in my head, but I feel like everyone's kind of talking about, I use this software to do this, I use this software to do this, and everything has its own little niche, which we can't really get rid of. My first firm, it was like Revit only. My current firm is like, I want to use Rhino, I want to use SketchUp, I want to use all these different things because that's the tool that does what I want best. So I feel like it's not so much about getting rid of Revit, but I feel like the next step is figuring out what software or what thing will be the container for all of the different softwares that we want to use that makes all of that data neutral and easy to bring it together. Because we're not getting rid of any of the softwares we like, but we have to make them all work together and make it in a format that everyone can distribute and is agreed upon. So I don't know if anyone's found anything like that. I know that Autodesk is working on their Forma, whatever you call it thing. They're nowhere close to being done with that. They just showed us a preview is generally what I think, but I think that's kind of the way forward is my general assumption. And I hope we find that at some point.
That sounds like a beautiful 2.0 conversation.
Yeah.
We're approaching our kind of.
I'm curious if everyone's talking about, it's like, because we're talking about a Revit file as a container for different files, right? What would everyone's thought be if like we can unzip Revit? Like, would that help our industry in any ways? Like, because it's like, I'm viewing it as like limited from what I know. We use CSV for tabular data. Like, we can use IFC for geometry data. I'm sure there's more, but like, is it one of those things where like, because we're constrained by a file type that we can't unzip, we're facing these issues? Because if we can, I'm thinking about the schedule example. We don't have, if we can unzip a file is with AI now, like, hey, find these specific tables that we want, formatted in this specific way. Like we have outside tools that do that. Is this more so like, this is kind of why I like brought up the whole like ACC and 2.0. It's like,
I'm gonna call it right there.
Fine.
Because that alone is, I think, a 20-minute discussion between the three of those guys there. So many thoughts, especially around this devil's advocate thing. Love it. I'm taking all of y'all names. We're gonna be gathering somewhere in town in the summer again around the devil's advocate and unzipping. I mean, with all due respect to the two of you, but you were talking about some of the pinnacle of architecture, right? It's not like this is the like 0.1 percentile of buildings in the world that the two of you were talking about with your Excel deliveries, right? Let's be honest, looking at the thing across the street. So there's obviously there's a reality in that, right? There's a reality in what Jan was saying. You go to Europe, they're proud that they don't do Autodesk, but they also can coordinate a thing because they speak, 18 different languages, quite literally, on the size of the Midwest, right? So I'm gonna bury my own opinions and stories. I'm gonna quit it here. We're gonna reconvene for that in a 2.0 later in the summer. Don't know yet how we label it. Devil's advocate, unzipping. Minsu is an Excel fan. If it comes to Minsu, all he wants to do is Excel. And the rest of us are kind of useless. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you to our panelists. Please give everybody a warm applause. Get another drink. Yes. Talking about that, perfect segue. Those of you who've been here before with us, we usually walk into the nearest, dive bar, which is right there, 33rd and Park, Stout, on the south side of 33rd between Park and Madison. 41st. Sorry, I'm thinking about my own office. 41st, wrong block. That's Grand Central, not Penn, right? Okay. So yeah, let's wrap this up. We're gonna I'm gonna have to pack up technology and whatnot. I'm sure people will be talking. I know all of y'all. It's gonna take me forever to push you out the elevator because everybody's gonna have a really exciting conversation. Minsu will lead the way out the elevator and towards Stout. We want to be good guests and not overstay our welcome. I want to be able to come back here, right? So please, eventually, move towards the elevator. Help us out on this. This is a particularly large crowd. I'm very happy about tonight's event. April is going to be Thought Tomasetti, and then in the summer we're going to redo this. If you have any suggestions, devil's advocate or whatever it may be. By the way, I want that scarf that you're knitting. I hope that's for me. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in April.